Welcome to today's National Organization on Disability webinar, a look inside the 2019 Disability Employment Tracker and Leading Disability Employer Seal. Audiocast quality is subject to equipment, available bandwidth, and internet traffic. If you experience unsatisfactory audio quality, please use the telephone dial-in option provided in your confirmation and reminder emails. If you have dialed in, operator assistance is available by pressing £0 on your telephone keypad. You may send questions at any time by using the Q&A window located on the lower left of the presentation screen. Just type your question at the bottom of the Q&A box and use your mouse to click on the Ask button to send it. A question and answer session will follow the presentation. I will now turn the call over to Felicia Nurmsen, Managing Director, Employer Services with the National Organization on Disability. Felicia, please begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to NOD's Virtual Learning Forum on the benefits of taking the 2019 Disability Employment Tracker and how to utilize the tracker to your best advantage. I'm happy you could join us today. We have a great presentation with a lot of valuable information to share. We do have time at the end of this session to answer questions as well. So let's get started. Today, we will discuss how your company can take the first step to determine your current state of disability and veterans inclusion with the Disability Employment Tracker. Because as we all know, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. The 2019 Disability Employment Tracker offers companies a quick, free, and confidential assessment of how your company's employment policies and practices stack up in 5 key inclusion areas, plus veterans inclusion, using unique and valuable benchmarking data. You'll learn how you can assess your firm's current practices to recruit, hire, and retain people with disabilities and veterans, as well as identify areas of success and opportunities to advance. We'll highlight the additional benefits available to companies that participate in the tracker, including qualifying for the 2019 NOD Leading Disability Employer Seal and the DiversityInc Top 50 Companies for Diversity. We'll also provide answers to frequently asked questions we receive when companies are completing the questionnaire, and we'll have time to take questions from you at the end of this session as well, as I said. So finally, we'll explore how to use your tracker results to advance disability and veterans inclusion initiatives in your company. So I'd like to share just a couple of key facts with you regarding disability employment and veterans inclusion. So why does disability and veteran inclusion matter to companies? People with disabilities are the largest untapped talent pool in the country. Approximately 20% of the U.S. population has a disability. And then nearly 80% of the 30 million working age Americans, ages 16 to 64 with disabilities, are not employed, yet the majority can and want to work. Changes to the U.S. Department of Labor Regulations, Section 503 and ZEVRA, set workforce targets for federal contractors. And then disability inclusion is proven to enhance corporate culture and increase engagement across the broader workforce. We also see that 87% of consumers would prefer to give their business to companies that hire people with disabilities. For those who are new to NOD, here's a little bit of a quick overview for you. NOD is a nonprofit that promotes the full participation and contributions of America's 57 million people with disabilities in all aspects of life. We focus on increasing competitive integrated employment for people with disabilities, especially in major corporations, by setting the standards for top performance by employers and helping them to achieve these goals. NOD has over a 35-year track record as a leading authority on disability with a board of committed senior corporate leaders and professional staff with decades of experience working with employers, disability organizations, researchers, and policymakers. NOD offers a suite of professional services tailored to meet companies' workforce needs and has helped some of the world's most recognized brands be more competitive in today's global economy by building or enriching their disability inclusion programs. Now I'd like to tell you more about the 2019 Disability Employment Tracker. Virginia, can you advance the slide?
One moment, please.
The Disability Employment Tracker offers your company a free, quick way to determine your current state of disability and veterans performance, the first step to understanding where your company stands today. It is completely free and confidential. NOD will not disclose that your company enrolled in the tracker, nor will we ever share any of your specific scores or responses. The survey was developed by the National Organization on Disabilities Employment Experts in partnership with the Viscardi Center, the National Business and Disability Council, with input from corporate leaders. After completing the tracker, you'll receive a benchmarking scorecard measuring your performance in comparison to all companies participating in the 2019 survey across the 5 key inclusion aspects, plus veterans inclusion, allowing you to identify those areas where you have strengths as well as where you have areas to improve. So far in 2019, we have over 140 companies registered to take the tracker. In 2018, over 200 companies completed the survey. The tracker is offered every year and is refreshed to reflect the evolving needs of employers and the latest leading practices in disability inclusion, gained through hands-on professional services consulting engagements by working closely with members of NOD's Corporate Leadership Council and our close observation of the marketplace. In addition to refreshing the questions each year to provide more clarity, we have added questions and answer options on a number of topics, including applicant tracking systems, plans for improving disability inclusion practices, self-ID communication campaigns, and veterans hiring. Companies can re-enroll in the tracker annually to track their progress year over year and demonstrate advances gained from launching or expanding disability and veterans inclusion initiatives. And typically, the tracker is completed by HR and diversity and inclusion leaders. The 2019 tracker is open now, and you can start today. Just submit your responses by the March 1st deadline to be considered for the NOD Leading Disability Employer Seal, as well as for DiversityInc Top 50 Companies. So if we move to the next slide. At NOD, we look at disability inclusion activities in 5 separate categories. And some examples of what we look at in each category are, under climate and culture, we look at senior leader support and commitment, whether or not you have an employee resource group or a business resource group, and other engagement activities. For talent resourcing, we look at disability training for recruiters, accessible applications, onboarding procedures, as well as your external outreach to candidates with disabilities. People practices, which is disability training for managers, staff, mentoring programs, and performance reviews that include disability. Workplace and technology. For workplace and technology, we not only look at the digital accessibility that your company has, but we also look at your facilities accessibility as well. Then for strategy and metrics, we include disability status tracking, whether or not you are tracking the status of disability for your candidates. Audits of current policies and plans to improve. And then for veterans employment, this section is optional, but all of our tracker takers in the past have completed this piece so that they do understand where they are with their veteran inclusion policies programs as well. But that does explore the same 5 categories through a veterans lens and includes organizational attitudes and policies and employee life cycle, including recruiting. Next slide. After signing up for the tracker survey at our website, nod.org, you will receive an email that gives you instant access to begin the survey. There are about 80 questions, which the vast majority of the questions are yes, no, don't know. There are also follow-up questions that will appear only if you answer yes to the parent question. So you see this on the slide for question 4. My company tracks the ratio of individuals with disabilities hired to all hires. If you answer affirmatively, you are then going to be asked to respond to the child question, which is 4A. If yes, what percentage of new hires within the last year identified as individuals with disabilities? It is important to note that there is no substantiating documents or evidence that's required when you're completing the tracker, and that most participants have told us that it only takes a few hours to complete the survey. Next slide. There are a few frequently asked questions that we wanted to cover here today. The most common question we get is about whether to respond to the survey on behalf of a division or subsidiary or for the parent entity. And really the answer is that it's up to you, but the guidance I would offer is that you should think about how you would like to use the results. If you create diversity plans across your firm from the parent level, then you should fill it out at that level so that your scorecard is a useful guide from that perspective. But if you do have and intend to keep policies by division, then fill out separate tracker surveys for each division. That way the information is much more pertinent to that individual division or facility. Do keep in mind that only one survey should be completed per entity though. Then often participants reach out to us about question number 18. My question has a careers landing page specifically for job seekers with disabilities. And what we're asking is whether or not your company has a dedicated web page encouraging candidates with disabilities to seek careers with your company. This type of page functions broadly as a marketing and communication tool and is typically housed within the main company website, as seen with, say, a web page dedicated to company values or commitment to diversity. This web page may include information about your company's disability inclusive culture and commitment to disability employment, and or share information on disability awards that you may have won, stories of current employees with disabilities, etc. The key is we are looking for something here more broad than having an "if you require accommodations, click here" button. We also get inquiries on question 28A. If yes, recruiting personnel are required to attend annual disability employment training that exceeds 30 minutes in length, and wonder if by offering 30 minutes of general diversity training that includes disability topics, does that qualify as a yes? And the answer is no. We're really looking for a dedicated annual disability training that's over a half hour. Now, this 30 minutes of disability training could be part of a 2-hour broader diversity training session, but we are looking for an indication of a dedicated effort to train your recruiters on disability inclusion and specific hiring techniques. Then often companies will struggle with how to answer a question when the available answers are simply yes or no, don't know, as they have some instances where the best practice is being enacted and other instances where it is not. So let's take a look at question number 37 to illustrate the issue. My training materials, e.g. skill building courses, reference guides, learning management systems, etc., are available in accessible format. Someone completing the tracker from HR may know that their corporate training materials are available in accessible formats, but are unsure if they should answer yes, as some training materials specific to different managers may not be. Generally, we do advise companies to answer affirmatively if the majority of practices in your organization conform to the question being asked. Next slide. Now, after completing the tracker survey, you will receive a free disability employment tracker scorecard as seen here. You would expect to receive this in the spring of 2019 or about 6 to 8 weeks after the March 1st tracker deadline closes. Your Disability and Veterans Inclusion Scorecard serves as a snapshot of your company's current disability and veterans performance. For each of the 5 key inclusion aspects that NOD looks at, we do provide a numeric score reflecting your company's performance in that inclusion area, as well as a benchmark score that shows the average performance of all companies participating in 2019. So you see where you stand as far as other companies are concerned, and then we actually give you those leading practices. You can use this overview to quickly update senior leaders on where your company stands today and build support for growing or launching initiatives to improve in one or more key inclusion aspects. For each key inclusion aspect examined, you also find recommended leading practices, as I said, from NOD's employment experts to help you advance. Next slide. The free tracker scorecard also includes a record of your responses year over year, which I do think is an important aspect, so you can see how you are improving based on your answers from those previous years. So for companies re-enrolling, we'll provide your year-over-year response trend, documenting your record of improvement, as well as you can see if you have stayed in the same category or maybe if something has slipped. Finally, the scorecard shows trends drawn from the aggregate and anonymized data of all participating companies. Next slide. Now let's discuss how to use your Tracker Scorecard. There are several ways that you can use it that are listed here on the slide, but ultimately you can use the scorecard tear sheet to build internal buy-in and support your disability and veterans inclusion agenda, demonstrate your advancement, and recognize internal disability and veteran inclusion efforts. You can also use this to benchmark your performance against your peers to understand how you're compared to the competition, understand critical success factors in disability and veteran employment. For federal contractors, demonstrate that you are taking tangible steps toward Labor Department employment targets. And then every tracker taker has an opportunity to talk through their results with an NOD staff member after you have completed this. You can gain additional value and take a deep dive into your tracker data with NOD's Disability Inclusion Accelerator, which we'll come back to shortly. Next slide. What's more, by completing the tracker, you can opt to be considered for NOD's 2019 Leading Disability Employer Seal, which allows your company to enhance your brand in the broad marketplace as a preferred disability employer. Consideration for the seal is optional and confidential. Your company's specific responses and scores are not shared. Companies who opt in for consideration but don't earn the seal will not be shared, so there's no downside to trying for this recognition. I'm sure that some of you on the call are also DiversityInc respondents and know that the tracker is a requirement for the top 50 companies for diversity. You will have the opportunity to opt in, so DiversityInc will be informed that you have completed the tracker, but no scores or specific data are shared. Next slide. By completing the Disability Employment Tracker, you have taken the first step to establishing your current state of disability and veterans inclusion with data. Next, take the second step with NOD's Disability Inclusion Accelerator and turn that data into an action plan, a service available for a fee to those who take the tracker. Each accelerator engagement is customized to your business goals and is informed by NOD's deep consulting experience. Our employment experts will meet with your team in person or virtually and take a deeper dive into your company's results by analyzing your performance against the group benchmark for each of the 80 survey questions. We'll use the detailed benchmarking data to identify specific areas where your company excels and opportunities for improvement. Next slide. During the accelerator briefing, our professional services consultants discuss your company's inclusion goals and develop a set of recommendations with short, medium, and long-term actions as tailored to your business. Clients gain from NOD's 35 years of disability employment history and the dozens of consulting clients we've helped succeed. Finally, the accelerator also includes a playbook for your team that you can use to build buy-in across the organization for new inclusion initiatives. All of the benefits of the Disability Inclusion Accelerator are available for a modest fee, but only for those who complete the tracker. Just email tracker@nod.org to pre-book your briefing now. Next slide, please. This wraps up our presentation for today. I'd like to open the floor to your questions now, and we'll try to get as many of them as we can.
All participants could submit questions using the Q&A box in the lower left of the presentation screen. Type your question at the bottom of the Q&A box and use your mouse to click on the Ask button to send it.
Thank you. Okay, I do see some questions coming in here. So we do have a question that is asking as whether or not the NOD tracker is a mandatory component of the DiversityInc Top 50, and we did discuss this. The answer is yes, that you do have to complete the tracker in order to be considered for DiversityInc's Top 50 companies. We also have a question. Can you repeat your answer to responding to the question on applicants visiting the career site? And having a dedicated page, certainly. What we look for in that, on that question, is that you do actually have a dedicated area that is specific to disability inclusion or disability in general. You can share your employee stories there, share what you're doing, what you currently are doing as far as your disability inclusion is concerned, but it is very specific to disability. I hope that helps. Then we have, what percentage of participating firms are government contractors? We have been told by our legal consultant that we are not allowed, we are not allowed to solicit disability status. I think, for the percentage of tracker takers that completed the tracker last year, I believe it was just 20%. I'm not sure. I think, Dan, if you have that number and you could let us know, that would be great. I do have another colleague on the line with us who may be able to answer that question specifically. We have another question. So each organization is required to re-register annually. Yes, you are required to re-register annually, please. That way we do know you do have to complete the tracker each year, because your results, we would hope that you would see a change in your result, and then you would continue to improve year over year. Someone asked if the session was recorded for future reference, and yes, it was. This session will be available to, I believe, our Corporate Leadership Council members after this call is completed. Someone's asking if we will receive the tracker and information via email after the meeting to complete the tracker. The information is here for you to complete the tracker, which is the site. It's www.nod.org/tracker. That is the information for you to use to complete the tracker. If you have additional questions, we do have an email address here as well. Someone's asking, what is the cutoff for saying when something is true? We are starting a BRG for disabilities this year, for example. Then yes, you would answer yes to that question, that you do have a BRG. If you've started it this year in 2019, then the answer would be yes. Do you offer disability inclusion advice and support to small to medium-sized nonprofits? Yes, absolutely. We would be happy to work with you. You can certainly email us at thetracker@nod.org, and your questions, and you will be connected with the appropriate person for questions regarding working with nonprofits as well. Let's see, I think we have time for one more. Let me see here. Do questions that inquire about the accessibility of onboarding materials refer only to post-hire materials, or do they include posting and interview materials as well? I think, as we said in that question when we first went over it, it really is looking at the majority of your materials. As long as the majority of your materials are available in an accessible format, you would answer yes to that question. We would hope that we are all striving to make all of our materials and everything that we do accessible, so that it is available to everyone, but we do understand that that is a process that all of our companies are going through. So we would look for you to answer that question affirmatively, as long as the majority of your materials are accessible. I think that's I'm just looking through some additional questions here. What tools are available to enhance intranet sites so they are more accessible? If you'd like to reach out to us under separate cover, we'd be happy to make a connection for you for an appropriate resources to answer that question. We do work with many different companies and partners regarding accessibility, and we would be happy to help you to make that connection. We also have different resources listed on our website, which is www.nod.org, where you can look on our resources page and you can see there are additional resources there as well for you to work with regarding accessibility. Someone is asking, let's see, besides the email received with our results from last year, is there a way to access our historical data? There is a way for us to, that would be a question that I would, if you can forward that to tracker@nod.org, we can get that answer for you, absolutely, as to the previous, your previous scorecards. And we have a question here. Can NOD also share the presentation materials reviewed today? Yes, Tracy, hello. I'm happy you're here. But yes, we are definitely making this presentation available in a PDF format after the presentation. So thank you for asking the question. Okay. All right, that is the same. Just seeing here if there's, I'm seeing several questions that are just the same. Let's see. Do you have sample language on how employers can ask for voluntary disclosure of disability status? We do have sample language on how employers can ask for voluntary disclosure of disability status. Again, we do have resources on our website that you can take a look at, as well as there are additional resources that we may be able to make available to you by emailing the tracker@nod.org. Okay, I do see that we are at the end of the hour here. You can enroll right now on NOD's website and get instant access to the online tracker survey. The tracker survey was designed to be quick and easy. Nearly all questions are yes or no, don't know. Be sure to submit your responses to the online survey by March 1st to get your free scorecard in spring of 2019. All companies that complete the tracker will be invited to an aggregate results webinar in May to learn more about the group findings. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at tracker@nod.org. So I want to thank everybody. This wraps up our presentation today. I hope you find it informative, and I hope you'll start the survey today. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you, Felicia. This concludes today's National Organization on Disability webinar. Thank you all for attending.